Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Effort Show, the Ultimate Kung Fu Show. I am Grandmaster Alex, and this is Sensei Joe. And we're coming at you with some more awesome DM advice here. Today, Joe.
Yes.
Long anticipated, asked for, we are going to talk about building mages. So we go behind the sheet today. Joe, we got a ton to cover. This topic on mages it's meaty. It's deep.
Oh, yeah.
It's intense. It's a little bit gnarly. So I say let's just go for it. Let's go.
All right. Ooh, real quick, I gotta ask. So with all of our other builds, we've kind of looked at it as, we've got a couple buckets spread around of the kind of classic types.
Great.
What types are we looking at for our mages? What are like those, I guess, kind of, typical types?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you may have picked up here at the Ultimate Effort Kung Fu Show. Joe and I love organization. Like, we love sort of compartmentalizing information to make it more accessible.
Bullet points for the brain.
Yep. To make it more accessible and to make it easier to sort of grok,
Yeah.
And we came up with 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna let Joe reveal those in a second, but I want to head this off first, because I can hear somebody going, "Yes, but what about artificer? What about necromancer? You have not included these." To which we say,
necromancers are just healers with bad timing.
Yep. To which we say, you know what? Hey, you can totally make those builds, no problem. What about potioner? Guys,
right?
We can cover those in future episodes, some of those more advanced builds, no problem. And certainly if you have questions about one of those particular kind of nuanced builds, let us know, okay? We're more than happy, as you can tell, to answer your questions. We'd love to talk about it. But we're talking about 4 kind of main buckets, 4 kind of main lines or avenues that you might take as a player to build your characters. So, Joe, without further ado, what are our 4 buckets today?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's that direct damage dealer. So we've got that kind of DPS mage that we're looking at. That's one of our buckets.
Fireballs, baby.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, big damage.
Big damage.
Hitting every time. Next, one of our other buckets, we've got that controller, that battlefield controller, the guy who looks at the environment and goes, "I'm going to change these things to make it beneficial to us."
Yep.
Or make it, disadvantage to make it bad for the baddies. Come on, Brent, not enough coffee.
You're stealing my shtick. It's a bad disadvantage. It's bad, folks.
For sure. Let's see. One of our other buckets we're looking at is like that classic summoner. He's pulling in other things to help in the situation or hinder the situation. Hinder, that's the word I was looking for last time.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, our
10 summoners' tales.
Ooh.
if you feel that sting. All right.
And finally, our last one is like that all-purpose kind of classic mage. Is the last bucket we're looking at, and those kind of feel like they're, I don't know if the most common, but like those typical things that folks are looking for.
Yeah.
And
More of
like Alex said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like more of a universal build on that last one. Yeah.
And we can get into more of those specialized, more focused mages, like Alex had mentioned, necromancer, alchemist, those types of things. We can check those out later because those can be built also. But those are the 4 we're looking at today.
But what about a sorcerer with a pet imp? Fools!
We can make that.
Yes, you can. You certainly can. But we think that these 4 main lines will really help you sort of unlock the potential for some of these other builds. So stay tuned as we go behind the sheet. All right. First bucket, direct damage.
What you got? Who's going first? Roll for initiative.
Oh, God. Oh,
I wasn't prepared.
I'm prepared. Here we go. Mana makes D20. Here we go. I got a 10.
All right. I gotta show some dirty laundry. I'm not touching this dice. Like, cause no shit. Oh, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, it is. It's a 20, you dirty
That's a
dog.
20.
All
All
right.
right. Wow, how do we fix this? Yeah, sorry, folks.
Well, Joe.
I'm having a Star Trek, shake scene over here. All right.
Joe is the Kung Fu Grandmaster. That is not surprising. Hey,
Dude,
Joe,
that was nuts.
guess what? I mean, it's ultimate effort. It's the ultimate effort show, bro. Now you got to roll ultimate effort. So
That was crazy. That was I was like, I don't want to touch that. That's nuts.
epic killer.
Oh man.
Well,
I guess I'm going first.
I guess direct damage. What do you got? Because I rolled a 10.
Hey, you were halfway there. Oh, that was wild. Sorry for the crazy, whoa, Shatner moment there with the camera, but I had to show it. That was cool.
Second place is first loser. No.
Oh, man.
What do you got, man? I'm excited.
All right. The direct damage guy. So, again, as always, I've got my Master Edition, this beautiful collector's edition book.
Beautiful.
Sorry for folks that missed that one, but the regular book is still just as dope.
Mm-hmm. This guy. I've got this guy.
So pretty. But I'm going in. I'm on page 42.
Ooh.
Life, the universe, and everything. Kind of, I guess, works for a mage. But if I'm going in looking for it, again, I know I've said it before, but I'm not as concerned with class. That's a little more, or I mean, with the life form for this. Like that's a little more like adding flavor and a little more like history and maybe story elements. I think for that.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at just making a damage dealing, just kind of an arcane badass on the field, I'm going for my starting ability. I'm going directly for wild power. Roll max on a die, roll it again.
Yep, that's it.
That's big stuff. My starting loot, I'm going memory ring, because that not only gives me 3 int spells to start, but that makes it potentially, if I don't cast a spell, I could roll a d6 and keep that number for later use. I can store up to 6 of those, which these are things I can feed right into making more damage, which is like the focus of this one.
Yep.
And then, let me flip over to my int spells here. Some of these choices, people might be like, well, why'd you pick that one? And I can explain those if needed. But out of my 3 choices of spells here for this memory ring, my first one, I've got to be I got to be an arcane missile. Got to take that arcane missile. It ricochets, can hit a second target if I roll only 1 damage, which is totally cool.
Pretty awesome.
That kind of helps feed into things. Because remember, if I max that damage, I get to roll it again. So I'm doing that arcane missile is my first one.
Okay.
My second spell out of these that I would take, funny enough, is not the fireball. Although that would be great. I think I'm going to pass on that for starting.
That feels like your milestone, right?
Yeah, it feels like
it. You level up your arcane missile into a fireball, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, my second spell, I'm going to take that lightning bolt. Because that's a straight line attack. So you get those moments where enemies just happen to be lined up. Maybe you have to move, which is totally good. I will move to make this work. But lightning bolt, crackling bolt with no roll. All targets in a straight line get to roll defense. Metal-clad foes take double damage. And that's in a straight line. So I'm rocking that lightning bolt.
Yep.
And my third trap, funny enough, is going to be the vampiric ray. Because... Yeah, because sometimes, we've talked about healers before and how sometimes the healer, he's got to get up close and personal out into the battlefield to help out his homies, those tanks, because tanks are sucking up damage. That's what they do. Yeah. So this vampiric ray will kind of let me suck some hit points back. And potentially with the other things that I've got in there with that wild power and that memory ring, I could top right back to max with my full heart.
Epic.
And all of those are damage dealing spells.
Yep.
Big time. They can all potentially hit heavy. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking at. And again, like any of the starting loot that I picked there, or like my basic gear, more of those are kind of fillers. So I don't know if I need to get too much into that because they're less important for this build. Because for this build, those spells, that magic, that is my focus. So it might just be regular backpack and staff, and
Yep.
Maybe a cloak.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, so that's what I got for a straight up damage dealer.
I love it.
What's your damage dealer look like?
I gotta tell you, Joe, we are remarkably similar up until we choose spells. But I am totally going with Wild Power. I'm definitely choosing that just like you. I'm definitely choosing Memory Ring for the DPS guy. I'm totally taking that for Master Edition. I don't know if there's any reason to mess around. You're going DPS, go straight to those two.
Yeah.
And then for spells, I'm taking Fire Missile. Yeah, that's Arcane Missile, but it's just Fire Missile. I'm taking Arcane Bomb.
Yes.
And probably from the magic section, I'm taking Ice Barrage. In fact, the heck with it. I'm taking Ice Missile, I'm taking Ice Bomb, and I'm taking Ice Barrage.
Ooh.
And I'm making a frosty, cold dealing mage. That's where I'm going to head. And
nice.
Probably I am looking at, along that line, milestone moment. Maybe even if I could get away with it at the start instead of my my starting loot or starting ability, I'm probably going to look at Path of Amber in the in the World's Path, and I'm looking at that Librum Arcano that turns anything 15 plus into a crit. Because if I want
that is a hefty boy.
If I want to eke out that maximum damage, I definitely want that. Like you, I think Lightning Bolt is killer because who doesn't love lightning? Especially if you're a crazy cold mage.
Oh yeah.
I think honorable mention is probably Orange Hex. If you want to wither people away, Blood Mist is certainly a fun one. Zeke's Immolation, if you just want to become living fire, or for an ice mage, just reskin it. Instead of Zeke's Immolation, like it's now like Zeke's, like freeze or whatever.
Right.
Reskin those, and now you're like an ice machine, running around.
Right. On that note, I think I should call out with that Zeke's Immolation, looking on the mage page for milestones, primal form can also be a thing where you don't have to make a roll to cast.
Correct.
You can just become an element for D4 rounds.
Correct. Yep.
So that could be like a cool spin, or maybe make that even more powerful.
Exactly. Like
that's awesome.
Yeah, you are Iceman, basically. and then I think ultimately, Fireball is probably like a high-end milestone that you want to look for. And then even just the death spell. Yeah. Like you're just gonna like cast death, they make a save. If they fail, they're gone. That's where I'm headed on direct damage.
Oh, that is nice.
I obviously I did it as sort of like an ice mage. I might choose elf and make like a really cold, distant, like kind of caster, right? But reskin that, right? Make it all fire. Make it all electricity. Make it all like like force or withering, or just plain up arcane. Like just vague it up. But feel free to be sort of creative with those sorts of abilities.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, those are both tasty, man.
Yeah, I love Ice Barrage, Joe. It's because you can throw these shards out like, and then they're either instantly blow up, or you can set them to like up to 3-round timer.
Oh yeah.
So like.
Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom.
Yeah, exactly. Or just, if you imagine it, like you're Iceman and you like throw these shards that like, skewer people, like, man, reskin it to that.
Heck yeah.
Ain't nothing but a thing.
Whew, yes. That's beautiful.
Thanks. Crazy person. All right, well, man, you had the nat 20, so I feel like it's only fair that you go straight into battlefield control.
All right, battlefield control. This would be a fun one here. So on that battlefield control, I think this is one where I would probably pick funny enough, the wild power once again for this one, just because it can help.
Love it.
All right. But for the starting loot on this one, I think this one's probably going to go Astral Grimoire, because that kind of makes it where the spell book is drawn to me and will slide towards me if possible. That's if I
Exactly.
drop it. And that baby also gives me 3 spells.
Exactly.
All
Uh-huh.
right. So that's,
So did you go, yep, Wild Power, Astral Grimoire.
yep.
Just to cut us off the chase here, that's exactly what I would choose for this build. So we're
Nice.
100% tracking again. Okay, go ahead.
Nice. Yeah. So next for that one, funny enough, I would also, I would potentially be looking at Arn's Hex, but that one would be more for a plan down the road that I would have specifically to help with that spell. I might jump over to that real quick. I would be looking at that milestone of Glyph Maker,
Ooh.
because helping with the battlefield control, that's creating a spell that I know etched into a symbol that's triggered by touch. So this is something you could kind of put as like a magic trap. Pop that glyph on the floor with the Arn's Hex. It's kind of like potentially like enemies that see that, because I don't believe it's a hidden glyph. They see that, they might have to move and go a different direction or suffer the consequences of whatever it may be.
I love it.
So that's my thought for that. That's a potential.
I love this idea of a glyph mage who's like
Yeah.
like controlling chunks of terrain.
Yep.
Epic.
That's
Okay.
that's the thought there.
Killer.
Um,
Love it.
Next one I would be looking at is that Crystal Sanctuary, because that's again, it's another kind of area of effect bit that helps control things. Crystal Sanctuary lets all of my allies within near get a +3 defense, and it lasts until I cast another spell or until I'm harmed. So that's another thing that it could, in my mind, I see those moments like 300 where they're all at that pass, and I would pop the Crystal Sanctuary right there, so
Yep.
that now we've got this control ring. Enemies are routed towards us, and my buddies are going to be harder to hit.
Love it. That's
And
epic.
lastly, for this battlefield controller, I'd be looking at Hammerstone. I mean, because even if it misses a bad guy, which if it hits, it's going to crush anything and kill it if it's got
Yeah.
3 hearts or less. It's just this massive stone
Yes.
that drops in D4 rounds.
Yes.
But the other thought, if there's no enemies there, I could start chunking off and blocking off pieces of the actual environment that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
again, to force enemies to move in a different place, maybe to something that's better where my dudes are already set up. Maybe
Epic.
even block the place off so that they have to come through my glyph, and somebody's going to get that Arn's Hex and just start rotting away. So I think those are the things I'm looking at for a battlefield controller, things that are going to force moves or cripple enemies moving through spaces.
I love it.
Those are the kind of things I would be looking at there.
I love it. That's epic. I I gotta say, Joe, I think I even went maybe a little bit more like chaotic.
Ooh,
Love
I
that
love
you
it.
sort of had a plan, but I think number one, right off the world path, I'm going create illusions. Like
Hmm.
like number one, so like there's all this like crazy stuff appearing. Like, oh my god, there's a dragon. Like like that kind of stuff. I'm probably going oubliette from the magic book. Now look, oubliette just creates a space as it's written, but I would work with my DM to make it like that person just gets trapped in that space. So like huge illusion over here, next round, no sir. You're gonna sit this one out. And now they're in a space. And I might also go mind trap, where that person's like in those sort of looping thoughts and they can't get out, and now
Yes.
this guy's crying in the corner, and then slowly start to like take people out that way.
That's good stuff.
Other good choices that I sort of thought about. I might go with similarly wild growth, like create those vines and entangle people. Dominate monster. So now like now that thing's on my side and creating havoc along with all these illusions and people getting trapped. I thought fog was a great spell. Like I think if you're talking
Oh
battlefield
yeah.
control, like I think fog has to be in your arsenal. Like fog,
Yeah.
you know how useful fog is. Like not only does it obscure things to protect you, it allows you to retreat and escape. Like it's great. I might even go disruptor ray even, where you just sort of lock somebody
Ooh.
down and they're just stuck. Or even repel. Maybe like your
Oh
glyph
yeah.
guy, right? Like repel would be a great one for that dude because
Oh yeah.
then they just can't get near your party. Like you drop one of those glyphs like right on us,
Right.
and now you can't come inside. You know.
Right. That's good.
Oh,
That is good.
and then probably down the road, like a major milestone for the battlefield control guy is definitely counterspell.
Yep. Yep.
For other mages, like we're going to cast death on you.
Right.
No, you're not. Right.
Right. Funny enough, my all-purpose mage, I've got counterspell.
I wrote it down there as well, sir. Cheers to you, Mr. Nat 20. All right.
I'll drink to that.
Mm. Whew, tastes like success. All right. Joe. All right, Summoner, man.
Ooh,
Where
the
you at?
summoner.
Where you at on Summoner? And by the way, I think people initially might not sort of maybe pick up on this lane, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
this is one that's a little bit more obscure, but I think in terms of just sort of like generalizing these buckets, you can easily go direct damage. You can easily go battlefield control. You can easily go with somebody who just gets other things to come do the dirty work.
And that's where the summoner comes in.
So what do you got there, man?
All right. So again, I'm popping straight out of the book, straight out of just Master Edition, like usual. So my first thing on the summoner, starting ability, I'm taking Dark Pact. I can sacrifice any amount of my hit points to boost any one roll. We'll see where this nasty boy is coming in here in a minute. For the starting loot, I'm taking Master's Skull, the small demonic skull. Can fill it with blood and store up to 10 points of hit points or of HP that I can either heal with or I can use as part of my Dark Pact ability. Aha.
Yeah. Oh,
put some blood in it, store it up, get healed, put some more blood in it. I can get that baby up to 10.
Yeah, I want to take a TV timeout here real quick, Joe, because that's brilliant. I think some people, when they see that choice, Dark Pact, Master Skull, they go, well, I'm a mage and I don't even get a spell. It's like, well,
this is exactly why I chose these.
Well, you do get heal. Just like you're a starting guy with heal and the ability, by the way, to bathe your skull in blood that you use as a battery to fuel all kinds of evilness.
Yep.
So
indeed.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
I
no.
feel like we had to address that because we do see that question from time to time, right, Joe? You don't even get a spell. Well, you do.
You do. You get that heal and a boost. But
so go ahead.
In ICRPG, not for priests or not for healers, because those are divine granting magic, but for mages, spells count as loot. And without something like the Astral Grimoire or the Memory Ring that have spells included, you can still choose other spells because I get 4 pieces of basic loot. So this is where, as my summoner, I'd probably take a Traveler's Garb. And funny enough, I'd probably take the Knife Belt. So I get a couple blades just in case. Because remember, I'm going to want to bleed some things to fill my skull, my Master's Skull. And those are the only 2 pieces of gear that I'm taking.
That's brutal.
The other 2 things, because I get four choices for basic loot, I'm taking spells for those 2. And my first one is 100% going to be Azul's Conjuration. I open a Brimstone portal to summon D4 imps. They only have 1 hit point. They bite for weapon damage and mostly obey. Now, here's where the fun comes in. The one roll that I'm planning on boosting with my Dark Pact and my Master Skull is that D4 imps. So imagine that, let's just say I've only got that skull halfway full. I've got 5 hit points in there. Maybe I want to top it up and throw 2 more of my own hit points. And so now I'm rolling D4 plus 7 for my imps. So I'm getting at least 8 of these bad boys that are just going to wreak havoc. They're doing weapon damage every freaking round, and there's 8 of them.
Yep.
And my second spell.
Wait. I just got first of all, I picked this one too. Should we just rename it Summon Imps? And who doesn't want to summon imps to do your bidding?
Right?
Especially on Joe's track. Dark Skull Blood
Oh
Bath
yeah.
Imp Master. All right, sorry.
Well, Imp mostly master because they mostly obey. Mostly.
Mostly. All right, go ahead. Sorry. It's awesome.
Yeah, no problem. We're good.
It's killer.
My second spell on this build for the summoner, uh, just for starting, obviously, I'm going to work with my GM to see about finding new things to invest in summoning other creatures later. But for now, my second spell choice, remember, this is part of my starting loot that I'm taking. I'm going with Dominate Monster
Epic.
because maybe I can't summon them yet, but I can sure as hell take over their mind and make them do my bidding anyway,
Epic.
all while I'm just hanging back. So I think that's where I would go for that. And so for folks that have this question about Dark Pact and Master Skull, it doesn't let you start with spells. That's kind of true. Like Alex said, we get our boost, we get our heal from that, but you've got your inventory spaces. Mm-hmm. You've got your choose any 4 basic loot, and I'm taking 2 of those loot choices as spells.
Just do it.
So yeah, and that's all stuff you can do straight out of the book. And that says, that's where I'm looking at. Like, I'm going to make this summoner kind of nasty. I've got my knives for cutting and bleeding things out, probably mostly myself.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's my devious summoner that I'm looking at.
Dude, I love it. That is a killer character. Like you need to play that character. You need to play that character. I kind of want to play him. Yeah, you need to play that character in a game. Holy smokes! All right, well.
And what wild conjurations have you summoned, sir?
In terms of like starting ability, I'm still probably going maybe Wild Power Astral Grimoire for a summoner.
Nice.
To me, that doesn't matter so much. Just the 3 spells to start that way, and I'm probably going to go also with Summon Imps.
Yeah.
That Azul's Conjuration.
Right. See, with just like that feeling and story of the summoner. Like, I don't know if I would call it Summon Imps because Azul's Conjuration. It has more of like that, like gritty, dirty feel of a
but if
summoner.
you're trying to search the PDF, like you're like, well, how do I spell Azul's? Like
Oh yeah, you can search under Imp.
Yeah, right. You need to search under Imp. I'm gonna pick Animal Friend. Probably.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
To get your little familiar or whatever. Maybe it's a wolf, whatever. Mm-hmm.
And real quick, I hope you don't mind if I interrupt.
Please.
I got to ask because I'm sure somebody's kind of curious about this. Animal Friend is a whiz spell.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you would ask your game master about to switch to int, or would you leave that as a whiz spell?
I would, honestly, I would just be like, it's all magic. Like, it's all int. Now,
there you go. Okay.
If you're really sort of like you're super particular, like, oh, it's not in the list. Like, calm down, folks. Like, calm down. It's all an ability or a milestone. It's all magic. You tie it to the stat that works best for you in terms of your vision.
Yes.
Right? Like, do that. But if you want to be very respectful, work with your DM. Usually what I do is when I'm done with my character sheet, like, I just send it. Mm-hmm. Like, take my phone, grab a picture of it, it looks weird. Because you're like trying to level it, get your picture, text it, or put it in your group chat to your DM. Like, hey, what do you think of this? If you don't want to put your DM in a box, by the way, don't just put him or her on Front Street in your group chat. Mm-hmm. Send it to them in a private message. Like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Right? What do you think? And get that feedback in a private message, and then post it to your group. Right? So that's just a little. Because otherwise then you put your DM in a bad position, right? Because then they got to look at your sheet, and if there's something that's or it prompts a further discussion, they're going to be like, well, actually, da da da. And that just makes everybody look bad. So send it to your DM, but I wouldn't even worry about it. If it's tied to magic and you get to choose any 3 spells, it doesn't matter whether it's on page, 45 or 46. And it's divided between it. Like, just pick a spell that works for your vision. Okay. And
nice. Sorry to cut you off. I just thought that was like a
a
quick little question point that would have come up, and just wanted to make sure it was covered.
This is why you're the sensei, Joe. Summon Imps, Animal Friend, And I'm probably going to take Elemental Beast.
Ooh, yes.
Now, Elemental Beast
That
has
spell.
this weird sort of language that says, for any like element that you can, that you've dealt with or whatever, I would work with my DM to sort of just change that and just be like, I just want to be able to summon an Elemental Beast, like whether it's a fire elemental or an ice elemental, or like a mud guy, like an earth elemental. Like I want to be able to summon an elemental. Da da da. Now, the beauty to this build and where I'm going is not only do I have imps, not only can I like have like a wolf friend, not only can I like create an elemental fiend out on the battlefield, but I'm gonna go to the magic book and I'm gonna take the growth spell as my next milestone, sacrifice a couple levels of power or my stun points or whatever, and next thing you know, that 1 heart elemental beast is now a 4 heart elemental beast, like rampaging all over the battlefield.
Yes.
So that's going to be the synergy that I'm going to try to build to with a summoner, is take like these small creatures and then make them large and let them like help our party. So
that's so cool.
and then I agree with Joe, like probably dominate monster makes sense, along the way. Excuse me, that sort of synergy, like if there's a creature out there, it's potentially mine.
Right. That's awesome.
I think somewhere along the way when I was building this, there's a way to open a portal and have a creature come out. I would probably look at one of those spells too. I think if you scour magic, like you can open portals, like you can have infernals come out, that sort of stuff. You might take one of those early mage loot items that lets you like reduce your cost for casting infernal magic and have some really cool infernals that enter the battlefield. Like, just flood the battlefield with your minions. Right, like that's sort of where I would go, and then bulk them up with growth or some other ability, like take invulnerability and put invulnerability on them. Take regeneration and throw regeneration on them. And now really like you kind of hang back and can find a way to really cause chaos in enemy ranks.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, those are some great choices.
Thanks.
Like man, especially like popping a growth spell on some of these things.
Yeah,
that's right. Just nasty.
It's brutal. Yeah, it would be brutal. Like you would need a pretty experienced DM to kind of like challenge that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But in the right moment, man, it would be so epic. Like I'm dropping fire elemental, and by the way, it's a 4-heart fire elemental.
Right? It's freaking massive.
It's massive. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Fun stuff.
Oh, man.
All right, Sensei Joe. Universal builds. Like
the classic.
Like the classic, does a little bit of everything pretty good.
Yeah. The studier, the scholar mage, which, funny enough, my ability choice is the spell scholar.
Me too.
Because finding a written spell and gaining an extra one, that's filling your catalog. That's creating your magic library, which every wizard needs. And for that one, again, just like with my battlefield controller, I'm going with that Astro Grimoire once more.
That's a good one.
Because it's just a great choice there.
This
is definitely something like, right, that's another great choice. And this is one where looking down the line for milestone abilities, I'd probably be looking at either, Bend Magic or Magical Theorist, and probably both of those down the line for milestones.
Epic.
Because between the two of those, creating spells with a hard roll and redirecting enemy spells once per encounter on that Bend Magic. So those are things down the line I'd look at. But for my immediate spell choices,
epic
on those, I'd be looking at like things like Blade Aura, which I can help a buddy. Boop! Now he's got this aura of blades around him. So when enemies or foes come and hit him, they're gonna get cut up by these magical blades. Weapon damage.
I love that.
So that's one of them. I think I would also be looking at possibly Doorway. This is one where I'm split. It would either be Doorway, which lets me open a portal to any location that I have been to before.
Yep.
Which could potentially be good. Or in place of that, I'd be looking at Magic Eye. Because remember, I only get 3 to start. Magic Eye lets me get this giant orb eye that I can move up to a mile and see what is there. I see what it sees. So I think those two, I'm kind of like at a toss up between the two. And the last one that I would 100% want to take is probably going to be Translocate, because that lets me swap places with somebody else, which is another thing that feels like pretty classic. Like I can either use that to pull an enemy in close so that my buddies can wreck him, or potentially save a buddy from harm. Like if they got themselves stuck in some magic trap or in some bad spot. Because remember, if I potentially have doorway, I can translocate with a buddy to save them. Then I could just doorway out to a location I've been to before, which is right next to my homie. So it'd be 2 rounds, but like those are the kind of things I'm looking at for the classic mage.
Brilliant.
There's no actual direct damage there yet, but I can pick those up later on down the road. Like it's those 3 are already a good stockpile. Because remember, when I pick up spells down the road, I'm a spell scholar. I'm gonna get 2.
Yep.
2 more spells. So that's what I'm looking at to kind of build that classic mage.
I love it.
With the staff, the robes, maybe a big pointy hat, a great big bushy beard.
Yep. You know, I'm old.
I'm old. I have no memory of this place.
Yep.
So yeah, those are things. I think that's where I would go looking for the classic mage. I understand a lot of that is more like that spell choice, and the just utility of them.
All of these, to a degree, like the spell choices really sort of flavor these builds, right? And that's why, back to our earlier point, like in terms of like, do you want to go more necromancer? Do you want to go more artificer? Do you want to go, in a slightly different direction? Like pick the abilities and the spells that give rise to that vision, that flavor, this sort of vision. So,
indeed.
I think it's interesting, Joe, that for this universal build, like you looked at some movement type abilities. I certainly sort of went that direction. This is almost like a utility class almost that has some of that stuff. So I definitely looked at I just wrote down one word: teleport. In my notes here, any sort of thing. Like I looked at translocate, I looked at whatever the doorway spell is, like any of those sorts of things that where you can affect movement in that way, get your party to safety, all that stuff is just huge. So any of those, I actually picked time warp from the magic section where you can roll.
It's just a jump to the left.
Yep.
Then a step to the right.
You put your hands on your hips. You bring your knees in tight and do the pelvic thrust. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing the audience participation part there.
Yeah,
they might kick us out.
You can sing it in your heads. But
sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Let's talk about the time warp again. But you can roll back the events of a previous round, and like to me that's just like super fun.
Yeah,
right, like that's super fun. I might round it off maybe with a direct damage. I might just go plain old firebolt, from the core book. Like what do you start with? You start with one little bolt of fire or ice or mud or whatever you want it to be, or acid, right? I looked at levitation as one. I might even pick healing touch or heal on a basic mage. Just if you're sort of that utility guy, like you're that, you're a spell caster, and if you don't have a priest or a healer in the party, like you might sort of pull the Gandalf, and the holy energy or the light comes out, and you knit the person back together. Yes. I might also milestone down the road if you're a universal mage. Just gonna kick me for this, but I might pick Garland's Sphere.
Oh yes, no, I love that spell. So brutal.
It's brutal, and it has just because if you're that you're that sort of Gandalf, like you're looking in your bag of tricks for the right spell in the right moment, something that can disrupt magic in a location, or somebody else's magic, or somebody with a magic weapon. Garland's Sphere is epic.
Keep it away from your friends.
Keep it away from your friends. Also, bit of trivia here: if you want to look for a cool caricature of me in the book, look at the art piece of Garland. That's who it's supposed to be. It's me in a robe. Basically, is what Hank drew. So
Right.
Garland Sphere has a special place in my heart. So I would probably go in that direction.
Oh, that's tasty. I gotta say, like as a player, if I had Garland Sphere, totally cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
If the GM was using Garland Sphere with enemies or in any capacity, I would be terrified.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Because man, that spell.
Well, Joe ran probably one of the most epic encounters using Garland Sphere. We were all in a tight hallway, and this dark black
S-shaped.
sphere just like started moving down the hallway. I will say for folks who are listening, if you want to craft a really fun trap for your party, put them in a confined hallway where they're trapped and send Garland spheres floating down the hallway.
Yep.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. Don't do it just a straight hallway though, because then they'll be able to see it coming. Get yourself a hallway that's got some curves in it. So the sight lines are broken. So they don't actually know it's there until it comes around the corner at them and they go, what is that?
Yeah, they just hear the hum at first, like whoa, 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 whoa. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then, oh God, and then like your flaming sword gets snuffed out.
Right.
Like, ugh.
I think
It's brutal.
B or Hank did a video about that trap, about that room encounter, that design.
Oh, yeah,
And he presented a couple other cool design twists, different
Yes.
shapes and things.
I think you're
Using
right.
that
After you ran that encounter on us. Yep.
Yeah.
Epic. So definitely consider
Boy, that was
Garland
years
Sphere.
ago. That was tasty.
So those are our mage builds. I did real quick, Joe, want to talk about maybe some of that mage loot that you might take. You mentioned absolutely the possibility you can take other spells, but you also there are also some really cool pieces of mage loot in the magic book that I would consider as your starting loot.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
If I was going outside of this book, there's so many things I would love to take out of that.
Well,
But I'm sticking to the straight from the book, straight from Master Edition for me.
these are in Master Edition
Oh, that's right. They did add them.
in the magic section. Yeah, absolutely. So
That's true.
Scrivener's Kit,
Look.
number 1. Scrivener's Kit is brilliant. It allows you to basically copy down any spell that you see cast, and then you can start casting it. That, by the way, is how Zeke defeated Durithrax, because anything she could cast, Zeke could then cast. Like, well, I'll just carry the 1 and do the math, and now I can cast what Durithrax can cast.
Right.
Like, Scrivener's Kit, epic.
Page 324 in Master Edition for the folks wondering.
Thank you, Joe. Power Crystal, epic. It can blow up a town. So, and literally in our
It has blown up a
it
town.
has blown up a town. Literally, old Hank with his Mage and Axamon set that crystal to blow underneath the town of Innsmouth. When we were rooting out the evil there during the Cath and the Ket game, Innsmouth is no more.
No.
It has been blown.
You mean Innsmouth Cove?
Yeah, it's now like hanging gardens, like with seawater rushing out of them, because it's just been destroyed in the lore, thanks to the power crystal. So consider that. I love Wizard's Blade, by the way. I think it is so cool. Classic, Glamdring kind of stuff. I love it. You shall not pass. Epic. For Zeke, by the way, he always has his suspended in a xenon mist, right? It drops into his hand, sort of storm, the Stormcaller series. 3 heartbeats later, his mage blade drops into his hand. Pretty epic. Exploding ring, especially I would consider that for your direct damage guy.
Big time.
Yep. And then Ironheart Shard, right? So the Ironheart Shard lets you use your int in place of a con roll to do a recovery roll.
Yeah.
Super epic for a mage to be able to kind of heal yourself like that.
Yep. And I do want to point out on that Wizard's Blade, that also lets you use int to attack for your melee with the sword, with that blade.
Thank you, Joe. Yes. It's just so cool. And then, Joe, I got to talk about two pieces of loot that are in the loot table. Um, I got to talk about the Dragon Helm. The Dragon Helm makes you completely immune to fire. And so, if you're a mage, particularly if you're a fire mage, or you think you might go up against other mages, or even hint hint a dragon, you need the fire helm in your life. You know,
Yes.
or the fire helm, the dragon helm in your life, because it will protect you from fire 100%.
Yep.
Also, if you're considering any sort of like weird time travel, trickery, or any sort of craziness like that, you need Kosgoth's robe.
Yes.
Because Kosgoth's robe makes you immune to time travel effects or time effects, time distortions.
Right.
So,
And yet Kazgat still kind of went mad. It was awesome. Cretans!
yes. So, consider then bolstering these maybe as milestones or down the road with some of those cool loot choices from the loot tables, because there's great stuff.
Yeah.
Like the stick of stickery.
Yes.
So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out that sweet mage loot table and use some of those items maybe even as milestones or initial starting abilities to fuel your mage. You know, how awesome would it be to create a mage and like your starting loot item is a stick of stickery? Like everything it touches turns to wood. Like what a great ability that would be, right?
Right. I mean, crazy enough, especially if you're a fire mage, turn it to wood. Firebolt. Because that firebolt, it ignites flammables.
Right. I love that. Yeah, I love that
Wood's
synergy.
Pretty flammable. Sorry, fire missile.
Yeah, I love that synergy. Yeah.
Wood's pretty flammable.
So,
oh man, I just had a gnarly idea. So stick a stickery, turn it to wood, then use wood shaper.
right.
Now it's something different.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, what like you got a stone blocking your path. Oh, you're now wood, and now it's like got a big split in it.
Right, you know? Man. So I guess there's a little elementalist or so. Because could you imagine that? What the heck was it? Elemental beast, wood shaper, or a stick of stickery. That's an element I have now affected with magic. Wood shaper. I make it into a beast shape. Elemental beast. Now it comes to life and it's doing my bidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. I'm so totally going off rails here.
I will say though, Joe, I do want to make this point because
camera.
You sort of raised this interesting point about it. You know, somebody might be going, well, why didn't you make an elementalist as a bucket? And the answer to that is the answer is in what we just sort of did, which is that any of these classes could be an elementalist, right? Just pick the element that you want to do, or just decide, you know what, I'm like, hey DM, is it cool with you if like this fire missile that I have, if sometimes it's a fire missile, sometimes it's an ice missile, like I can maybe switch up the elements,
change them,
right? You know, or take that as a milestone or a starting ability, like that does exist. So so you don't need a whole bucket to be an element. Like any of these builds could be an elemental type, you know.
Yeah. So, very easily.
Yeah, very easily.
An elemental summoner, totally
a thing. Right? Totally a thing. Man. You know, maybe at level 1 you can just, you know, summon a fire beast, but you know, maybe at level 2, like you can change that beast in anything you want or summon any type of elemental beast.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so whew, man, those are some cool wizards builds. I'm all jazzed up. I'm ready for Kung Fu in the garage now. So, yep. So I think we're just going to do the quick outro. We're just going to say thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. That was fantastic, Joe. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
As always, Joe.
Yeah, take my hero coin, folks, and always roll ultimate.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks, folks.